The first thing, it's kind of silly when I'm asked to, what's going to be the legacy that I would leave as an entrepreneur? And when I'm through speaking to you today, I'm not so sure that a lot of you would want to be part of that legacy. One of the things about entrepreneurs is that they're no better than anybody else. They're no worse than anybody else. They're just different. They think different. They see the world in a completely different way. And quite frankly, it helps to be a little bit crazy being an entrepreneur. I'm addicted to it, in fact, being an entrepreneur. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. My mother and my father, extremely hard workers, very courageous. We came from Denmark in 1952 with $34 in the train tickets from Halifax to Calgary. So we understand about taking risk, and we understand about not having fear. So my own instincts for entrepreneurship actually came from my mother and my father. But the truth is, my first entrepreneurial experience came right here at the University of Calgary. That number, do any of you guys recognize that number up there? That's my student ID number, 062401. In fact, I spent the most of my time right in this building playing poker. Because one of the things they didn't have diagnosed in 1966 was ADD. And one of the common traits of all entrepreneurs, or most entrepreneurs, isn't just ADD, but hyper ADD. So they didn't have it diagnosed in those days. And so there was very little opportunity for me. There was no sense in me going to class because I couldn't focus on listening to some professor talk to me about something for an hour. So I had to find a different way and a different way of spending my time up there, because I didn't want my mother and father to think that I was wasting time up here. And what I noticed is that in my high school days, I'd learned how to be a pretty good poker player. And what I saw here was unbelievable, was a plethora of pigeons that wanted to lose their money. And so I started playing poker with a bunch of these people, and it was a very, very good living. I was having a lot of fun doing it, obviously not going to class. By the way, it took me 5 years to get a 3-year degree between University of Calgary and University of Alberta, and I can assure you I wouldn't even be admitted in either one of those today with my academic achievements. But nevertheless, I made a good living, a very good living. But one of the problems is my pigeons started running out of money. And this is one of the first attributes that's so important as an entrepreneur. You got to be creative. So how are they going to get more money? And what I did is I started a student loan and grant consultancy agency. And what I did is that I would help them fill in their applications for getting grants and loans. And I'd take a 10% cut for filling in the application, because I knew how to manipulate the whole thing and how to get the money for them. And I would remember in the Students' Union building here, downstairs where you've got that bar, there used to be a Bank of Montreal. And it'd all be done through the Bank of Montreal. And I could remember some of these poor guys having to sign the back of their student loan checks and give them right over to me. So I would say that my entrepreneurial heritage is definitely here at the university. I think that when you take a look at what you're doing and what the definition of an entrepreneur is, it's pretty darn broad. Obviously, this astronaut regards himself as an entrepreneur. When you take a look at the city of Calgary, what we have here and how we operate, you see a completely different spectrum of entrepreneurs. This is a city that's full of oil people, engineers, accountants, all forms of people that you would describe as entrepreneurs. So you think about this city has some of the greatest entrepreneurs anywhere in the world. People like Ed McNally from Big Rock, Bern Katelka from Spring Creek, J.C. Anderson, Clay Riddell, Jack Gallagher that was with Dome Petroleums, Sam Switzer, John Terode, Don Douglas, Don Taylor, Steve Dudelsack. These are all people from different walks of life. And some of them had a great success. Some of them have had a little bit of a downswing in their career. I personally was bankrupt in 1982, so we know about, failures in what we do, but we don't let that change the way that we approach things. We just keep going, and we make sure that we learn from those lessons in the very best way that we can. In fact, if I was going to write a book about my career, I would call it, there was a ski term, my friends, in fact, one of them's here tonight, they talked the way they skied, they called it linked recoveries. Well, in business and in entrepreneurship, that's what it's been for me, is linked recoveries, is learning from the mistakes that we make, because you never learn a darn thing when you do it right anyway, but you learn from your mistakes. And it's very important that you take that into what you're doing there. And so if we take those type of entrepreneurs, is you have to have an incredible appetite for risk. Ed was kind of he wouldn't have had a chance. If you looked at the sheets of what an entrepreneur is, there's no damn way that Ed McNally should have been an entrepreneur. First of all, he's a lawyer, and lawyers are the Antichrist. They live vicariously through us. They prey on us. We go out there and make mistakes and get sued, or we go out there and we make money. They get the money off of us. That's what they do. And Ed McNally, he was a lawyer until he was 60 years old. And then he decided that he wanted to build a brewery, the Big Rock Brewery. And in fact, he started my second career in 1982. That's when he started Big Rock. And one of the reasons that he did it is everybody told him he couldn't do it. And I can remember times him coming to my office, because I'd already been broken and through it once, and he did struggle in the beginning, there's no question about it, because he really wasn't used to that kind of an environment. But what he learned is that you just deal with things as they come along. And one of the things my father taught me, when you wake up in the morning, you know you're going to have 50 challenges. If you think you've got 50 problems, you better quit right now, because the stress will kill you. It's how you respond to those challenges that sets you apart from everybody else. If you start looking at the gremlins and talking about what's going to go bad, there's no way that you'll ever succeed. And Ed McNally, he learned that. He used to come over to my office and hang around with me once in a while, because our factories were pretty close to each other. And one day he said to me, Mogens, do you know why I come over and hang around with you? And I said, yeah, we're entrepreneurs. We got similar problems. I said, no. He says, I come over to your office because something bad's happened. Either we got a bad batch of beer, or had an employee that I've had to fire, or the banker's calling my loan, or something like that. And I come over and I see you. And I said, and I realize you've got 100 times the challenges that I do, and you don't show it. Well, that's one of the things about being an entrepreneur, is you expect the challenges. Just like this astronaut, he expected the challenges. You do expect the challenges. Being able to recognize opportunity where nobody else can see it is one of the most difficult things for an entrepreneur. If you look at the different types of things that have happened out there, and seeing the world in a completely different way, and being able to recognize something that nobody else can see. And by the way, you don't do this on a singular basis. Anything I've ever done has come from the result of learning from other people, or seeing things, having other experiences. But being able to see the world in a completely different way. Look at our company. We're 7 years old. We're not supposed to brag, but I got to say we got 720 employees. And here, a manufacturing company in Calgary, Alberta, the Antichrist of manufacturing. And if we had and we have a policy, it's not an accident, no lawyers and no MBAs in this company. And not because they're stupid, because they're extremely smart. It's one of their problems. Is that they are able, and remember, what they're trained for is to be able to do market research and be able to see what the gremlins are out there and see what things you shouldn't do. Let's face it, if an MBA was analyzing our business, we shouldn't exist. Everybody knows that manufacturing is dead in North America. Just take a look at the automotive industry or the residential furniture industry. Manufacturing is dead in North America. Even our Prime Minister says that green costs more money than conventional, so it must be true. And then the third thing is you cannot manufacture in Calgary, Alberta, because you can't get people here, the cost of wages, the distance to the market. It's absolutely impossible to do that and manufacture in Calgary, Alberta. Well, guess what? We're doing it because we saw something in a different way. We haven't succeeded yet, but we've definitely grown a business, and we've done it in spite of conventional wisdom. We do have a natural disdain for conventional thinking. My wife says I do things just to be contrarian. It's just not true. We do it. We get to aggravate a few people. That's just one of the bonuses of what we do. But at the end of the day, is that we do have a disdain for conventional wisdom. We have a disdain for conventional management. Nobody in our company, for instance, gets a private office, including me. In fact, 40% of our employees work out of their homes. They don't even have to go to the office. We've made a big discovery. There's such a thing as intelligent women with children. And being able to let them work out of their homes and not having driving to and from an office, the hydrocarbon expenditure, everything they do, you get these idiots that say, well, they're not as productive at home as they would coming to work. That's somebody that doesn't trust their people. Our people, if they wanted to do nothing, they could do it at the office. They don't have to do it at home. And in our business, we allow that, and we have a different work style that flies in all the face of conventional wisdom, but it works, and it works darn well in what we do. We do work on instinct. We don't do strategic planning. You can imagine, our company's going to go public here in the next little while here, and we have to have certain people speaking to the marketplace, certainly not me, because if they want us to describe how we run our business, the truth is, we run it with our nose. We don't run it with our brain. We run it with instinct, and that's the way we work. And we don't, in the 21st century, there's no such thing as a 5-year plan. There's no such thing as a 6-month plan. There's a 5-minute plan, and that's how you respond to your business, and that's how you have to be able to do it. And you have to be able to trust your instincts in what you're doing and how you do it. You have to understand, too, that the only way that you can succeed is through making decisions. Good ones or bad ones. And I learned that really early in my life. I was about 10 years old. My brother, Ola, was a year younger than me, and we asked our father, we said, hey, Dad, what do we do here? And he said, well, then I shouldn't have to pay you. If I have to decide for you, then I should be getting your paycheck. But Dad, we don't know what to do. He said, then figure it out. And that's about being proactive and not being afraid to make decisions in what you're doing. And if they're wrong, so what? That's what we do. Not all entrepreneurs are necessarily nice people. Right now, every single partition that Apple uses is manufactured by our company. And in fact, we're just in the process of, we were in London, England last week meeting with the architect. Same architect, Sir Norman Foster, that's did the Bow building here, architect for the Apple project. One of the things that I've learned about working with Apple, it isn't that they're a bad company, but they have a culture that's so opposite of ours. They have a culture where their employees are afraid to make decisions. They're afraid to communicate with each other. This secretive society that they have, it's not a happy culture. When we walk into those spaces, in those spaces that we built, we don't see people smiling. We don't see people communicating. Big sacrifice, and that comes from the leadership of that entrepreneurial leadership. And let's face it, this man has redefined the world. The way we get our music, the way we communicate. He totally did all of those things, but that doesn't make him a nice person. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs that aren't nice people. They've sacrificed so much for the sake of money. I personally have sacrificed a lot of my family time for our business. Having gone bankrupt, you realize that it's not just your family you're responsible for. It's all your employees and their families that you're responsible for, and you have to take it to heart. And it's not your company, it's their company. That doesn't mean that I'm a bad person, but at the end of the day, everybody makes their decisions. Being an entrepreneur doesn't necessarily make you a nice person. The creative force of optimism, positive thinking. I've taken a lot of heat here in the last little while because over the last 3 years I hear there's been a bit of a recession. And my job is to stay positive. If I don't stay positive, how will your people stay positive? If I don't stay positive, how will your customers, have any confidence in you? And some people will say that, that's Panglossian optimism. It's not. We realized that we were going to get through it. We just didn't know how bloody we were going to get. And we did get through it. But the positive force and being optimistic is extremely important in the way we run our business. My father used to say to me, He said, you know, Mogens, the only reason you got that order is you were too dumb to realize that you couldn't get it. We put it in a different way. When we build things, sometimes we build things, and the reason you can succeed is because you don't know why you can succeed, why it is that you're going to succeed. You just go out there and do it. It's so extremely important in what we do. So what are the attributes of an entrepreneur? The biggest attribute is this: passion. This is the thing we gave out in our old company. We called it our 5 P's for passion: passionate people, perpetuate, perfect performance. And we would hand this bronze P that we had made by a local artist, Alex Caldwell, and we would give that, and I would give this to customers, or I would give it to employees, or I would give it to architects and designers, suppliers that showed those attributes. That's what drives any entrepreneur, is passion. Perseverance. There's a term they call it gestalt. Always be looking at the goal. The gremlins are going to be there. The problems are going to be there. But don't care about the problems, because you're going to have to deal with them anyway. If you're so darn focused on the negative, you'll never get to where you're going. You have to be focused on the vision. Work ethic. There's no such thing as a lazy entrepreneur. Whether you like it or not, you have to be addicted to working extremely hard. It's just a part of the life. There's no such thing as a successful entrepreneur that doesn't work hard. Creativity. The Yogi Berra statement, if there's a fork in the road, take it. You've got to be creative. You've got to be able to solve things on an extemporaneous basis. We're in construction. And we deal with a guy called the building inspector, who next to my wife is the most powerful person in the whole world. And when that building inspector, regardless of what the book says, doesn't like what he sees, then you respond to it. You have to have a sense of humor. One of the reasons that I like to make mistakes is it gives our competition the opportunity to laugh at us at our stupidity. So we're there for their entertainment. But you have to have a sense of humor. We got to laugh. There's certain things that you just can't do anything about. And you have to be courageous. You can't be afraid. You can't be afraid. It's one of the reasons why I won a lot of money up here playing poker, is that you know those guys that are counting their money all the time, they're so afraid of losing their money, you knew sooner or later they were going to lose it. You can't be afraid in what you're doing. Intelligence. It's funny, when I wrote down the attributes, number 7 or number 8 was intelligence. It's not that important. I work with people, my partners, that are so much smarter than me, you can't even believe it. I deal with people every day that are way smarter than me. You know, and that's the secret. You don't have to be smart. You just got to know what you do and make sure you surround yourself with people that are a lot smarter than you, and make sure that you're in the same position that they are, that you respect their position and you respect what you're good at. So what's the successful between a successful entrepreneur and one that's not? You have to recognize your strengths and weaknesses. I'm not a manager. I fired myself as the manager of DIRTT. My old company, Smed, in 1984, smartest move I ever made. You can't be a manager and be disorganized. You also, if you're going to be a manager, you recognize that you're not useful doing anything meaningful anyway, so you should be a manager. You have to trust your instincts. You have to check your ego at the door. When it comes to your family, your employees, and your business, you check your ego at the door. You have to learn from your experiences and what you're doing. Like my father would say, we're not going to make the same mistakes we made for our other clients. We're going to make new mistakes for you. Never ever quit, but know when to cut your losses. Learn from other entrepreneurs. I certainly do. They inspire me every single day. There's nothing more inspiring for me than to talk to other entrepreneurs, whatever they do. And then the last thing, always set aggressive goals. I've never reached a single goal that I've set in my entire life, and I'm just fine of it. I fall well short of it every single time. And don't be afraid. Just go out there and do it. Thank you very much.